Welcome to another episode of Around the Campfire. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Jaimie Somlai, Marketing Director at Northwoods, and today I'm joined by Matt Karge, our WordPress Practice Director and Business Development Manager. In addition to working with clients, Matt has been leading our WordPress practice for several years and is known around the office as our Chief Humor Officer. We can always rely on him for a good dad joke or two, sometimes several times in the same meeting. So thank you, Matt, for keeping things very light for all of us. We greatly appreciate it. And
Glad I
when
can.
Matt is not at work, he's actually kind of serious outside of work. He's an avid writer and reader and is particularly obsessed with World War II and 40s music, which I know we
Yep.
have in common. So
Yes.
I guess, my question for you is, do you have a favorite World War II movie or a favorite big band?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I would say movie wise, there's a ton of, but like Band of Brothers, the TV series is by far the best when it comes to all of them. And
That's a really good one.
I would say for big band, I don't know if I have a specific big band I like. I prefer Bob Crosby's band when,
Okay.
those songs. And then like the
Yeah.
Mills Brothers, they're not really a big band, they're just a band.
Okay.
So I would say those are my two go-tos. I always enjoy their songs. So yeah.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
And you have a novel that you wrote related to World War II, right?
Yes. Yeah, I spent a lot of time writing it. Essentially a love letter to my grandfather who never talked about
Oh,
World War II. And I had a little fun with it. So it's what I tell people is it's a mix of like, Band of Brothers or Saving Private Ryan with, Lord of the Rings. There's a little bit of magic into it and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun. And
that's so cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
so I had a lot of fun with
Nice.
that.
Can people go find it somewhere out there in
Yeah,
the internetverse?
it's just worldwar2fiction.com, and the
Ah,
the number two is actually spelled out. So the number,
okay.
or it's the number two. It's not like two I's or TWO. It's World War, the number
Number
two,
two. Okay. Nice.
fiction.com. Yeah,
That's awesome.
yeah.
Congrats on that. That's very
Thank you.
cool. Well, hopefully people will go and take a look at that.
Yeah.
So, in addition to learning all about WordPress from you,
Oh
they can
yes,
read more
yes.
about World War II,
And,
even though it's fictional. So,
and that
yeah.
website is built on WordPress, so that's a
Well,
good. There you go. It
there you
all
go. You're
comes full
combining all
circle.
your worlds. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly,
exactly.
exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today
Yeah.
and talking about WordPress. I guess before we dive in, another kind of signature question I ask everybody is related to s'mores because that is our favorite snack here at Northwood. And it's
True.
crazy how many people, how people kind of vary their s'mores with the different chocolates that they put in it. So I
Oh.
always have to ask, what is your favorite chocolate that you usually put in
Oh,
s'mores?
okay. So my son, my younger son, who's 14, his favorite thing is to do a sporg. So we have
Oh,
multiple chocolates.
I love it.
So we'll do Hershey, obviously, Reese's peanut butter cups, Crunch bars, and a whole slew of other ones. And so it
Okay.
eventually becomes like there's so many different chocolates, and he'll get like the cheapest regular chocolate you can get and the most expensive chocolates you can get, and then we have a whole thing. And as crazy as it sounds, I tend to lean towards the Reese's peanut butter cup as
That's
my
not crazy.
chocolate. Yeah,
That's my
it's the
favorite.
peanut butter. That's your favorite. All right, cool.
It is.
It's the peanut
Yeah.
butter. It's the peanut butter and the chocolate and the
It just
marshmallow just coming together. Yeah.
yeah. It
Yes.
adds
So
it adds like the perfect touch of additional flavor to it. So,
yep. But
yeah.
I mean, if I forget which candy bar has like the almond pieces, maybe it's just Hershey's with almonds. That's actually
Mm.
kind of good too, because there's a little bit of a
Mm.
crunch along with
Yeah.
but the
Okay.
smorgasbord is
I love
what we do
that.
at the Karge household. Yes.
That's awesome. Well, now I have more idea. Every time I ask someone, I get more ideas
Yeah.
for what I need to do with my s'mores. So this is awesome. All right. Well, I guess we'll be serious now and we'll
Uh,
talk a little bit about WordPress. Not
all
that that's
righty.
a super serious topic, but
No.
more serious than s'mores, of course. So yeah, there's always so much to know about WordPress, and it can sometimes be hard for marketers to kind of know everything that they should. It's kind of a
Yeah.
case of you don't know what you don't know, especially when it comes to things like site security and the need for regular updates, which is why you started our worry-free WordPress, our service a few
Right.
years back, which is awesome. So I guess we'll start with a really big, broad question. What is the single most important thing that you feel like marketers or site managers need to
No,
know about WordPress that they may not already know?
without a single shred of doubt in my mind, the most important thing for a marketer to know about WordPress is that it requires routine maintenance. So you kind of touched on this. So WordPress has its core platform, which is, the tool you use to add content and add photos and things along those lines. But then you can also add a theme to give it its look and feel. You can add plugins that add functionality. It works a lot like your phone, right? So you buy a phone and then you can add, apps to it and things like that. Same thing with WordPress. But what WordPress doesn't have that your phone does, it's your phone will auto update itself. And WordPress kind of has it, but it really doesn't. And so you just have to be very with your ongoing maintenance on a monthly basis. And so what I mean by that is really getting someone on your team or being that person on your team that is constantly every month logging in, running updates for all of the things that are running on your website and just making sure everything is functioning correctly. But that's one piece. The other really important piece that has been extremely important in 2024 is security patches. There's been a lot of news very recently in the summer of 24 where there's been some findings done that plugin developers have been releasing plugins and unknowingly releasing plugins that have a security flaw in them,
Ooh,
and that the code actually has nefarious code in there that as soon as you install the plugin in WordPress, you're already hacked.
oh
And it's because they
no.
found that the developers of these plugins were hacked themselves. So these hackers were putting code within their releases and then sharing it. And it's just, you have to be very vigilant about that kind of stuff.
Wow.
So
So
yeah,
the
so that,
developers had no idea that
no
they had been
idea.
hacked
Yeah,
and
right.
oh wow,
Yeah,
that's crazy.
the last count I've heard, so there's 60,000 plugins plus plugins that you can download on WordPress, and that they're not all maintained well and stuff like that. There's been several that have come out recently that are used a ton that have been found to already be hacked by the time it even gets to the marketplace, which is just crazy. I would say, like, develop some sort of plan that you are actively watching notifications if there's a security patch, and releasing those, and following through, and updating them, and just doing the monthly maintenance, because we've had several organizations come to us this year that their website had to be completely shut down because they didn't do the routine maintenance, and they had to shut it down because it was a security risk for the organization. So when that happens, it takes several weeks to be able to rebuild a site and get it back online. So I'm rambling here, but it's like security, security, security.
Yeah.
Just sure you're focusing on that a ton this year because it's really come out to be a big issue. So
Wow, that is
that's what I'd say.
crazy. I did not know that.
Yeah,
That is not something that the average person would think about. So that is a good thing for marketers to kind of keep top of mind.
right. And there's kind of this feeling like, oh, how bad can it be? And it's like, no, it can
Mm,
be horrible. It can destroy your organization, and it can just ruin your reputation. Like, if your website,
right.
if someone takes control of your website and starts displaying things that shouldn't be displayed on your website, or they get your users information and they, start doing bad things with that, it can ruin your overall reputation as an
Mm,
organization too. So it's huge. It's something that people really need to focus on, especially the buck stops with the marketing team, because they got to make sure
mhm.
everything is up to date.
Right, right, which probably makes it even more valuable to work with a vendor like Northwoods, where you can have that worry-free WordPress service that's updating your instance regularly and making sure that you're not necessarily falling victim to those types of issues.
Right. the reason why there's value to that, it's, hey, we're great at it. It's not just that. It's also like we're on top of it. And that's why I always say, like, if you couldn't hire a vendor, you at least need to have somebody who's on top of it and they're getting the notifications. Because I'm connected, our WordPress practice is connected to WordPress themselves, automatic, the developer, and all the different plugins that we use and the host that we have. And there's always this information coming in from all of these different areas. And it's important to read through all of that because it might say, like, hey, there is a new security patch you got to upload and get on your site immediately, or face some pretty dire consequences.
Right.
So when you have a firm like Northwoods doing what we call worry-free WordPress, where we're doing the maintenance, we're also jumping in to do those security patches when they come up. And this year alone feels like there's been a ton, especially in more recent months. There's just every week there's been a security patch of at least one or two different plugins that we've had to update. So
that's a lot, actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah.
And there's websites we've built where I know they're not running the routine updates and they're not hiring us to do it. I just hope they're
Yeah.
doing it. That's
Right.
just
Right.
I feel kind
Yeah,
of bad.
that's a little scary. Well, that kind of leads to another question, and I'm sure there are probably some other platforms that experience some of these same like need to be routinely updated and managed, just like WordPress. And I'm sure you get asked this quite a bit, but what is the difference between WordPress and some of these other platforms that are available out in the space, like HubSpot and
Oh, sure.
Squarespace and things like that? And is there anything that marketers should be aware of, in terms of those platforms and the difference between them and WordPress, and why is it important to kind of understand the differences?
Yeah. So WordPress still owns most of the market share when it comes to CMSs on the market, and it's not even close. WordPress really is still king. But there are a lot of new CMSs out there. HubSpot isn't new, but they've really come onto the market strong. Same with Squarespace or Wix, and there's a ton of other platforms that are really actively trying to get some market share of the web world, because obviously we need websites, and so it's a perfect time to create a CMS and do something with it. What's really different about WordPress versus like a HubSpot or a Squarespace is if you're doing the WordPress.org version, you have more control over it. You have more ownership over it. You can choose your host. You can really choose the plugins that you want to use. But again, with great power comes that great responsibility, right? Of picking out the right plugins and making sure you're following up on the security patches. Where HubSpot and a Squarespace, those are SaaS models, or the software as a service model, where you're paying a monthly fee, and that monthly fee covers hosting, it covers the cost of licensing for the platform. You get all of the tools out of the box type of thing. And that can be very beneficial for some because they don't really have to think about it. They can just go for it, right? And so what's nice about it is the not having to think. You don't have to focus on the routine maintenance like a WordPress, but they are limited in what they can offer versus what WordPress can offer. WordPress just has so much more out there that's available because it is just this open source monster where you've got developers creating all sorts of different things that can help you. And HubSpot and the other platforms, they just don't have that yet. And it's just because WordPress has a massive head start and a massive community. So it's going to be really hard for the others to catch up. The last thing I'll say about the difference between, if you do WordPress.org, there's WordPress.com, which is very similar to HubSpot and Squarespace, where it's like a SaaS model. But if the WordPress.org version, the huge difference is that when you are with a Squarespace or a HubSpot, the software as a service model, the moment you stop paying that fee, everything is shut down. And your ownership of everything is really in their hands. And that can be a very terrible thing because there's been news stories where, someone, their website was shut down because the owner of the CMS didn't really agree with the content that was being displayed using their platform. And it can be all sorts of different reasons. I don't want to get political or anything like that, but it's like
Sure.
they have that ownership over you where they can shut you down. And that's kind of,
Mm.
to me, that's like a risk I wouldn't want to take. And that's
Yeah.
not, for example, like my World War II website. It's like, well,
Mhm.
maybe they don't like having websites that have a gun in a picture or something like that. Well, it's World War II. Of course
Sure.
there's guns, that type of thing.
Right.
So, that's one of the other bigger things. It doesn't happen quite often, tons and tons of times or anything like that, but it's like something to
Mhm.
just keep in the back of your mind if you do go to one of those platforms.
Yeah,
So,
that's really good to know because
yeah,
I don't know if a lot of marketers really do know that with, those SaaS type models like you're talking about, you really don't necessarily own all of you
right.
don't own your site and you are at the mercy of those platforms.
Yeah, it's important to read the fine print because I was working on a project. I won't say the platform, but I remember talking with them. They were asking me like, does this make sense to go in this direction? And I was reading through a lot of the fine print and it was just like, oh my gosh, you don't have the content you put on the site is not yours, it's theirs, and they can do whatever they want with it. And it's just like, wow,
Wow. Yeah, that's like
so be careful
mind
about that. Like,
blown. Yeah.
yeah, right. Yeah, just got to be very, very careful with that kind of stuff. And I'm not
Yeah,
saying that they all are like that. That was more of an
sure.
offshoot CMS, but it's just like, oh,
Sure, but it's a good caution for people
right.
to have in mind. So that's really good. I guess changing gears just a little bit. I
Okay.
know that you're often asked questions kind of around WordPress and how well it works with catalogs or e-commerce needs. So what is something that you feel marketers should know that's important if they're building a website that has a catalog or lots of data or information?
Yeah, I get this actually quite a bit. First, WordPress can most definitely handle like a very complex catalog. Anyone that says like, oh, WordPress can't do that, it's going to be an IT person who hasn't touched WordPress in like 10 years. I'm just being brutally honest there.
Yeah.
Because I always hear from the IT team, and there's nothing wrong with IT. They're doing their best to make sure everything's safe and secure and stuff like that. But like the notion that WordPress can't do like a massive catalog is just, that's the old way of thinking.
Mm.
There's been a lot of recent updates and a lot of new tools that are available that have really come onto the marketplace with WordPress that makes it a great tool for that. The tools that we often use when we're working with a catalog, there's WooCommerce, that is the e-commerce tool that Automatic, the developer of WordPress, they own. It's not as well used as other platforms out there, but there's others out there that you can use. There's also tools where you can just create custom posts and then create filtering around them to create a catalog. And depending on what you're trying to accomplish with the site, without getting too far in the weeds, different platforms work better with different implementations. And that's the thing I guess is important to understand, that depending on what you're trying to accomplish, WordPress can be just an amazing asset for you to make maintaining a very complex catalog very easily. Almost to the point where we have some clients who they just download a spreadsheet, make changes, and then re-upload that spreadsheet, and it automatically does it. So there's a
Mm.
lot of different ways you can do that to make it really simple. You don't have to go out and have like, a massively expensive implementation to have a catalog up and running for you. I think the important thing though is that a catalog is only as good as it's implemented. So you can have a very complex catalog, but it might be extremely hard to maintain because it wasn't built in a manner
Mm.
that is easy. So oftentimes when that happens, it could be one of two paths. One path could be, it's a catalog that's grown in complexity over time, and there just was no vision. There was no clear vision on how to do that. And it's just become more and more and more of a pain because you've added more to it. The other path is You just didn't think things through. You didn't have a
Mhm.
strategy in place. You have all of this data, but you don't know how to use it or why you need it and things like that. And that implementation is really key, because if you build it in such a manner that makes it extremely easy to maintain, then obviously you're going to have a better website in general. So that implementation is really important, and it's important to have like a go through the steps, go through, have a
Mhm.
digital strategy done where people are, you've got people who are doing research to figure out how people are searching for your products, get that done. That will then define the structure and the foundation of that catalog. And then you have a developer come in and build it to a degree that makes it very simple to maintain. So yes, you can build catalogs in WordPress. They can be extremely complex, but they can also be extremely easy to maintain with the right implementation.
Nice. That is really good for marketers to know. I do think there is, to your earlier point, a little bit of a perception on the WordPress side that
Right,
WordPress is really good for like simple sites, but
right.
maybe not for super complex data heavy type sites. And that isn't the case these days. So that is good for folks who are in that e-commerce space or just have a lot of data, whether it's product data or other information, to know that
Right.
WordPress is a viable option for them. So
Yeah,
good advice. Good advice. So I guess another, some other challenges that marketers face with WordPress, you talked about security and the need for routine maintenance. Are there other things that are really big challenges with WordPress that you think marketers should kind of keep top of mind?
that's a good question. I would say it's probably time, which is not, that's kind of a cop out answer, isn't it?
Not
But
necessarily.
time, like, so a marketer only has so much time. And what we often come across is marketing teams or a marketing individual, a team of one, right? Or multiple people. They're tasked to do with a lot more work than the people that they have to do it. And that
Yeah, that's
leads to
common.
taking like shortcuts and those
Mm,
sorts of things. And especially when it comes to the, like, routine maintenance, you don't want to take shortcuts on that. But to do that due diligence where you're doing the monthly updates and things, that takes time away from your normal routine.
right.
If I were to say anything, probably the biggest challenge for marketers is they don't understand what WordPress can do for them.
Mm,
So with time, they're not using time to understand what plugins are running their website, and they don't know all of the different features that those plugins offer. And not understanding that, a marketer will think, oh, I need to add a table to my site, so I got to go find another plugin. So then they add another one, but meanwhile, they had a plugin already on their site that could run that same table. So now they've got duplicates, which opens up to more security
mm,
issues and bigger things. It's that time. It's
yeah.
really spend time to sit down, understand what plugins you have. What's nice about WordPress is you can click on plugins and you get the whole list of plugins. And there's a link on each one that you can click on that'll take you to a page that shows what the plugin offers and what the features are, and other information that can be extremely helpful. So the biggest challenge is just not understanding what you have and utilizing it. And I think there's a lot of different resources out there. There's YouTube, there's blogs. You can type in Google searches and find answers for pretty much everything. And it's like, I think most of the issues and challenges that marketers have with WordPress is that they just don't realize what they have. And I think that could really help them in the future.
That makes sense. I know you've talked about making the technology kind of inventory in the past. And is that what you're
Right.
referring to? Is like understanding all your
Yes.
plugins, all your different technology, and really keeping track of all of that. So you're not duplicating, to your point, a plugin that you
Right.
already have, or maybe you just didn't realize an existing plugin could do something that you want to do.
Well, and taking that step further too, of just understanding, like, what are all the bells and whistles that come with this one plugin. There's SEO plugins out there that do all kinds of things in the free version and no one
Mm,
uses them. And like, understanding that you could add a page title and change the slug to be more of an SEO friendly thing. It's right there, but no one uses it.
mm,
And that could help optimize their site better and get more traffic
Yeah.
and things like that. So
Yeah. So to your
little
point,
things like
just
that.
taking the time to really
Yep.
understand those things is
Right.
important. That's really good advice. Another topic that I know you guys get asked about a lot is related to design.
Yeah.
Everyone's favorite topic is
Right.
website design because, it's way more sexy than talking about the underpinnings and technology involved.
Yes. Yes.
What are some of the latest kind of design trends in the WordPress space that you think marketers should kind of keep an eye on at this point, summer 2024?
Yep. Yep. Well, what's funny is, so I've been doing this for over 10 years now with Northwoods, and I was a marketer prior to that. It's funny, like the core ideas of design haven't changed. Like you ask, a marketer or, an organization, what do you want your website to be, to look? And it's always like, we want it to be simple. We want it to be clean, things like that. And that hasn't changed at all. It has not. We just had a kickoff meeting with a client just the other day, and they use those almost exact terms. It was simple,
Mm.
clean, and crisp were the
Mm.
terms that they used.
Like Apple. Is that a
Yeah,
big go-to?
yeah, Apple. It's always
Apple.
Apple
Make
and
me an Apple
Tesla.
site.
Yep,
Yeah,
and
right.
Tesla. Yep.
Yeah.
And so what is interesting about that is that's what people have been saying for the last 10 plus years as I've been with Northwoods, but that what that means has changed. And before, it was just making sure that the fonts all matched and things like that. But now it's evolved to where our designers and our UX teams, our user experience teams, are making sites that have a lot of negative space and just white space around it to allow the user to focus on specific things as they go through the site. And that's become a really important thing. But I think where the biggest change has happened this year is everyone, not, I shouldn't say it, everyone, B2B businesses are now pushing themselves to have a B2C feel.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is the days of having, like, if you're a manufacturer and you've got a widget and you've got multiple versions of that widget and it's just a little gear or what have you, you know, 5, 6 years ago, you would have a catalog and it would be a very basic site with just those widgets and things like that. But now it's all about, like, well, how do you show that widget in use so that the user, when they come to the site, can really connect with that tool or that widget or whatever you're trying to sell. And what that has turned into is just websites with more photography and people using whatever you're trying to promote, whether it's a service or a part or a tool, what have you, but really making it that B2C experience where it's colorful and it really pops and just the user immediately connects with what you have on your website. And we've noticed that has become a very dramatic shift, and our UX and design teams can give you all the reasons why that's important, but it's that connection. And what that leads most marketers having to do with when it comes to design trends is taking better photography of what they have or using AI to create images that are an approximation of what they need and things like that. So the trend is really B2C for everything, and
Mm.
big and bold and pop, and giving the user the ability to focus on a very specific thing so that you can convert them or lead them down a path to a conversion.
Makes sense. All about the engagement and conversion, right? Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you touched on this a little. You mentioned the term AI, which is,
Yeah. Yeah.
which is the term du jour
Right.
for everything. So I can't let you go without asking you what kind of AI trends, advancements, tools, functionality have you kind of seen in the WordPress space? Do you think marketers should know about, good or bad? It could be,
Right.
it could be something really positive. It could be a cautionary type thing, don't use AI for this or that kind of
Well,
thing.
Terminator 2. I mean, how many times have we seen this, right? Okay, from a WordPress perspective, the term AI, I should say from a WordPress platform perspective, so from Automatic, they release like notes as to where they're taking the platform in the future, and it's a way to get the community to help build a better tool and things like that. And AI is talked about, but not focused on, I think is the best way to say it. So I don't know if the AI revolution has truly hit WordPress yet. It might have, and I just haven't seen it. But it hasn't hit like the the, the local, John Doe working on WordPress yet. From a platform perspective, where I have seen AI come up is more in the plugin perspective when you're adding a plugin. And I don't know if it's really AI or if it's just marketers saying, "Oh, this is AI now," and it's the same stuff that the plugin has been doing this whole time, but now it's AI driven, right?
Right.
So uh, some of it does. So, for example, I mentioned an SEO plugin a little earlier. That's an area where I've seen AI become helpful for marketers using WordPress, because if you need to type up, a meta description about your page or find more information on how you should title your page or some SEO related type stuff, those types of plugins have where you can do a search and it can provide more information. And I think it's just pulling from either Chat GPT or another tool out there.
Gotcha.
And that's essentially what I've seen from a WordPress and plugin
Okay.
perspective. I
Yeah.
think where marketers can get a better impact is just using AI for their daily tasks, right? And
Right.
I think that's where the revolution is more important at the moment,
Mm-hmm.
where, my personal experience is I'm using AI to, if it's like, oh, I need a little code snippet,
Yeah.
to add an underline for whatever reason. Bad example. But it's like I don't have to go to the developers to get it every single time, right? I can just
Right.
do it. And there's a lot of different AI tools out there. I have my favorites. I know other people have their favorites. It's just find one that
Yeah.
works best for you. But
Yeah.
from a WordPress perspective, I don't feel like it's fully hit just yet. I think
The
it's
revolution
still,
is still to come.
things are still working their
Yeah.
way out, and some plugins are embracing it, but not everyone.
Good to know. And I think that's really good advice too, Matt, on, just focusing on how AI can help you as a marketer or digital marketer make your day-to-day life easier
Right.
and manage some of those routine, mundane tasks that you can offload to AI.
Yeah.
And we do have a really good blog post, a recent one that Alex on the digital marketing team wrote about AI tools for digital marketers. So definitely everybody go and check that out because there's some really good use cases in there that you can replicate. So
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And
yeah.
and the thing I always caution is like don't rely too much on AI. If you're having an AI write
Yes.
your blogs and all this, no,
Don't
no,
do
we're not
that.
there
Yes.
yet. Yeah. No, no. And
The human touch is necessary still.
yes, still,
Yeah.
it is still, yes.
Yes.
So
Yeah. AI hasn't taken over the world quite yet. So
no,
we're still safe for now
give it
as
like 2
humans.
months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And then we won't even have to do these around the campfires because AI will just do them for us.
Which is
So
great. Yeah.
yeah. Who knows? Crazy world.
Yeah.
So, is there anything else that you think it's important for marketers to know about the WordPress space right now that we haven't already touched on?
If I can just reiterate one thing, it's just there's so much change happening with WordPress. If you go to the WordPress developers website and just sign up for their newsletter, they have
Yeah.
newsletters that come out. I think that's a smart thing to do, just so you understand the direction of where the platform is going. They also release information about, security patches or things to just keep, be vigilant upon and things along those lines. Take a little bit of that time out of your day to do that, because I think it'll pay dividends in the future, just because you'll have a better understanding of where the platform is going and just being secure with everything.
That's excellent advice. So, well, thank you so much,
Yeah,
Matt, for
my
joining
pleasure.
me and doing a bit of a deep dive into WordPress. It was really fun talking to you about it. I am sure that we'll have you back sooner rather than later because of
Sure.
all of the changes constantly happening in the
Yep.
space. So we'll get to talk all about WordPress again very soon. So thank you to everyone for joining us. Keep your eye out for our next Around the Campfire episode, which will be available in the next couple of weeks. And you can find all of our previous episodes on our YouTube channel, or you can visit us at nwsdigital.com/around the campfire. So thanks again for joining us, and we will look forward to you joining us around the campfire again really soon. And thanks again, Matt.
Yep,
Have a
thank
good
you.
one. All right.
You too.